Great. Well, it's wonderful to be here and be joined with by so many members of our community across the country, pulled together by 350.org in support of making sure we have a proper climate trigger in our federal legislation and our federal laws. We have environment laws in this country that allow the Environment Minister to give a tick of approval to a new coal mine or a new gas well or a destructive project that damages the climate and puts more pollution up into the atmosphere, making it harder for us to tackle the climate crisis. It is absolutely crazy that our Environment Minister can say something gets environmental approval without even considering the climate damage of a particular mine or project. Now, there's all the experts, members of the community, scientists, they know this law needs to be fixed and they want to see this loophole closed. But of course, the business lobby and the big mining corporations are desperate to keep the loophole there. They don't want the federal laws to consider climate damage. They don't want the Environment Minister to have to look at or consider what type of or level of pollution a particular mine will create, because they want to be able to pretend that a new coal mine or a new gas field would be environmentally okay, when it clearly is not. Our environment is under massive stress. We know that we need to start cutting emissions, and you can't do that if you keep making the problem worse. Every time Tanya Plibersek, as Environment Minister, signs off on a new coal mine or a new gas field, it makes it harder to stop dangerous global warming. Every time the Environment Minister signs off on a new coal or gas mine and gives it a tick of approval, it makes it harder to sustain the health of the Murray-Darling Basin. It makes it harder to ensure that our wildlife are protected from horrific bushfires. It makes it harder to ensure that members of our community who are still suffering the terrible, terrible experience of bushfires in their backyards, through their homes and through their country towns, makes it harder for them next time round. Our climate is changing, and it's changing because coal and gas is polluting our atmosphere, driving and fueling the climate crisis. We have to be able to say no to new coal and new gas. And that's why we need a climate trigger in our environment laws. I'm so pleased to be joined today by such a vast array of members of our community who have felt the real brunt of the climate crisis, and they are calling on the Federal Environment Minister and the Prime Minister to do the right thing. Who wants to fix environment laws, you've got to make sure there is a climate trigger in there so that the Environment Minister can't just sign off on new coal and gas.
Hi, I'm Cara Kinchler, Gomeroi traditional custodian from Narrabri, New South Wales. We've been fighting Santos in the Native Title Tribunal for the last 12 months after saying no to the Narrabri gas project. We've done it on the case that climate and environment risks to our country and our people are too high to allow this project to happen. We're currently going through the tribunal with the New South Wales State Government and Santos, admitting our climate evidence to prove that our environmental health and safety will be affected, our environment and our land and waters will be affected by a major gas project going ahead, including a major pipeline that'll run all the way through New South Wales. We're asking the support of the government to enact a climate trigger to support the Gomeroi fight against Santos and help traditional owners better protect our environment.
Yama, Raymond Weatherall, Gomeroi. Look, I can only add to what Cara has said in regards to, the decisions that are made in these halls in regards to Aboriginal culture and heritage, especially Gomeroi. Tanya Plibersek has been asked, pleaded with, begged to, with the stroke of a pen, to just sign off and say no to the Narrabri gas project. It started with Scott Morrison, and the Labor opposed them back then with their gas fire recovery that they were talking about. Labor came on a ticket, to stop new gas and coal, but they've approved every gas, proposal in Queensland and in Gomeroi country as well in New South Wales. If you keep doing the same thing over and over with the same result, that's insanity. The climate is only going to get worse with approvals that come in the future. When are we going to put a stop to it? Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Garijala Gabawungu. I am the representative of Waranungu from the Wangan people in central Queensland. My family have been fighting against Adani for 12 years now. We have maintained the same position as we have when we first started. We said, no, you can't have this mine. This mine will create massive amounts of climate change damage. It will create massive damage to our sacred sites called the Dungabulla Springs. This mine was only approved on the basis that Dungabulla Springs was not going to be contaminated. Now the science has proven that Dungabulla Springs is contaminated with hydrocarbons, and there is a drawdown in the springs which should be triggering the water trigger, which our governments are failing. Our governments are failing me, they're failing my people. Our sacred site that we call our dreaming, this is our part of our creation, this water has been running since the dawn of time. Now, why should Tanya Plibersek have our people's lives in her hands? Why should one person have the ability to crush my people's identity on who we are? We are the Wangan and Yagalingu people from Dungabulla, and we've always been there and we'll always continue to be there, even if I have to take care of a broken spring. This is my obligation to my country. I'm born to that country. I'm a part of that DNA. I'm the roots to those old growth trees. I'll protect them at all costs. And I'm here in Parliament House to garner enough support to ask people, to ask senators, to ask MPs, help me save my country. Help me save your country. This is connected to the Great Artesian Basin. It's leaking hydrocarbons into the Great Artesian Basin. We're all going to be poisoned. They're poisoning the water hole. We have to act now. We need the government to hold accountability to mining companies. They've done the wrong thing. They've signed environmental agreements. They've signed contracts. You've broken those contracts. Now take away their mining leases. They're not allowed to have these if they're going to continue to destroy Australia's natural assets. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jacinta Farmao, and I am here representing the Pacific Climate Warriors. We're here to demand that the Australian government stay true to its supposed ties to the Pacific, family ties to the Pacific. And we want to say it's time to choose a side, either the side of the continued destruction of the fossil fuel industry or the side of its people, our communities, us, its constituents. And to get on track, we're asking to enact the climate trigger. Not only will this strengthen the relationship within the region, but we know it will have a positive impact on the livelihoods of all communities, especially Pacific communities here in Australia and in the Pacific, of which Australia is a part of. Pacific Island countries have historically been punching above its weight, displaying climate leadership, especially where we see so often it's lacking in countries that are rich and high emitting. I think that our fight is one and the same with First Nations. While the Pacific are experiencing the climate impacts of the burning of fossil fuels, it's First Nations people here who are directly impacted by the extraction of those fossil fuels. And so we're here today to demand no more coal and oil projects and to enact the climate trigger.
Hello, I'm Jo Dodds and I'm the President of Bushfire Survivors for Climate Action, and it is a huge honour for me to stand here today with Senator Hanson and with First Nations leaders who are doing the real leadership that this country needs, of representing their community's interests. And some of them are fighting for the very ground that they stand on. I'm representing communities across Australia who have already experienced multiple catastrophic bushfires across every state and territory in Australia. Bushfires that are predicted to only get worse, get more frequent, destroy more homes. In my little shire, we've already lost over 500 homes to bushfire in the middle of a housing crisis, in the middle of a cost of living crisis. And you can imagine how damaging that is to a small community. Being asked to be resilient, being asked to recover from this is too much. There's only so much that human beings can tolerate. There's only so much that we can lose again and again and again and still pick up those pieces and go on. And that's why I'm here today supporting calls for the climate trigger. I have a petition with me. It's not about the climate trigger, but it is about a pause on fossil fuel accruals until we've got strong enough legislation to protect the environment, which is where we all exist. And without those protections, communities like mine continue to live in fear, constant fear, all year long. The only time we feel safe is when it's raining. Thank you very much.